Now, with that being said, okay, that started crippling the real estate market. Then you had other types of situations like the subprime mortgages that started to come into maturity at that particular time, meaning that people who got home loans under the idea of a subprime mortgage financial instrument would basically pay nothing but interest they would pay nothing but principal at first for about 5 years of the note. And then after that 5th, 6th, or 7th year, depending on what you agreed upon, the interest rate would kick in, which would otherwise double, if not triple, the amount of money people were paying on their initial note. So you had the contraction of the employment market, you had the maturities of the financial instruments, the subprime financial instruments, you had people all of a sudden foreclosed on. The real estate market started collapsing right before everybody's eyes. And then once that happened, people that didn't get fired, people that still were employed but still paying on a house note, these people were paying on house notes that were once, let's say for the sake of argument, $300,000 house note. Because of the contraction of the real estate market, that house note went down to $100,000, if not less in some markets. So people were left holding the bag, paying $300,000 notes on a $100,000 valued house. So that in turn made people decide, well, you know what, I'm not going to pay on this house. I'm going to foreclose too. And literally that's what collapsed everything, man. I'm not joking around. And then we go back to the derivative security market, okay? People started foreclosing on homes, so the banks were left with collateral, because that's why the bank gives you a home loan. They use the home as collateral, all right? That's why before Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, you would have to put down 25%, sometimes 20%, and once you did that, the bank would give you the amount loan necessary to buy the home from whoever's selling it, and they in turn use the home as a piece of collateral just in case you can't pay the home. Now the problem is that people were foreclosing at such a massive quantity that the banks were left holding the bag with loans and the collateral worth, if not maybe a quarter or a third of what the loans that they took a loss on in foreclosure. That's where they called toxic assets. Remember that? Remember that whole terminology back then, that the banks had toxic assets? That's what it means. They gave out loans for homes that were like $500,000 that got foreclosed on that are now technically worth like $100,000, if not less at that time. It was a freaking mess, okay? So what the financial institutions thought, that they said, hey, well, wait a minute. Even though we're suffering in the foreclosure situation, even though we're holding toxic assets, even though the collateral isn't worth as much, we still have this derivative security market. So now, I can just go, as a financial institution, this is what they were thinking, we can just go and cash out on our derivative securities, and whether we win or lose, we're still gaining capital back. So that's what they did. They went to the derivative security market. They went out and they decided that they were going to cash out on these derivative securities, and those that lost, they went to AIG to cash out on their insurance, and all this was a domino effect that literally nearly collapsed the entire financial system. I kid you not. That's why it's so complicated. That's why I had to sit here for a good amount of time to explain it to everybody, because I'm sick and tired of hearing that deregulation caused the financial crisis. That's a bunch of horse crap. It was the idea that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were entities that were pushed by Democrats, Barney Frank in general, to force financial institutions to give home loans to people that didn't deserve it. Now, have we learned anything since then? Absolutely not, folks. We have not learned anything because, folks, right now, we're in another housing bubble. Now, how did this happen? Well, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac turned into FHA for you folks that are unaware. Now, what's going to happen with FHA? Now, let me explain to you what FHA is. It is a home loan that is completely backed up by the government. With FHA, you don't need to put 20%, 25% down to buy your home. With an FHA government loan, you can buy your home at like 2.5%, 3% down. I mean, are you kidding me? 2.5%, 3% down. And literally, folks, people are going and purchasing their homes under this FHA crap. And what's going to happen is the same goddamn thing, because that's what's propping up the housing market at this point in time. I mean, go to a bank right now and drop 25% on a home. They'll be salivating all over their pants. Are you kidding me? The banks are waiting for people that actually have money. You know what I mean? They're actually waiting for folks. They don't want to mess around and give anybody a freaking loan. I mean, they want people like this, but everybody's getting the FHA loan. That's what's propping up this rise in the real estate market. That's why I am not a buyer in the real estate market at this point in time. Now, with that being said, we're going to see a contraction on both the stock market and the real estate market, because it's the same goddamn crap, different plate, man. All right? And it could happen at any time at this point in time. Any time. That's why Trump and the administration at this point are focusing so much on creating jobs. Because if you create jobs, you stop that foreclosure mess that ended up kind of waving in this whole financial collapse in 2008, 2009. Because as I stated, that's what caused it, folks, the contraction of the job market. The contraction of the job market is that's what happened. That's the way it is, and that's all there is to it. So, with that being said, folks, that's what caused the 2008, 2009 collapse, plain and simple. And it's going to happen again unless Congress gets off its ass. This Republican Congress, they ain't doing a goddamn thing, and start passing tax cuts. Starts allowing the president to, kind of deregulate the business sector so that business growth can happen. We need this type of job growth so that it can offset any potential contraction. Because if we can have job growth, any contraction that comes along will be offset at some point. It's not going to be that prolonged like we saw in 2008, 2009. We're just, believe it or not, we never left the recession of 2008, 2009. I mean, the proof is in the living standard that we have now accepted. Well, not me. I'm a capitalist. I don't accept nothing. But most people in America today have accepted a lower, ridiculous standard of living right now. And the reason is because that's what Democrats like to do. They like to take a crisis like the crash of 2008, 2009, and prolong it and use it to their powerful advantage. Now, I know I'm getting a little long-winded, all right? I know I'm getting long-winded about this subject because it's going to happen again. It's not Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac anymore. It's FHA loans. Now, because the majority of real estate at this point in time are FHA loans, if by some chance there's a massive foreclosure on FHA loans, who's holding the bag on the damn houses? The government. It's not toxic assets no more to the financial institutions. It's the government. And the scary implication of that is that when the government owns these toxic assets, when the government owns these home loans, what are they going to do with the property? Are they going to move in immigrants? I'm not joking around, man. I mean, this is what this has all come out to be. The whole collusion. That's what got me started on this whole tirade. The collusion of Wall Street and the government. The collusion of banks and the government. That's why Wall Street has more vested interest in making sure that the Democrats and the establishment Republicans are in power so that they can continue this perpetual scam on a consistent basis. So that's why I'm saying I would be very, very worried during the next collapse, because if you're living in a neighborhood where there is a lot of FHA loan people, who and what is going to happen to those goddamn houses when they're foreclosed on? I've thought about that for a long time, and the only thing I can think of, when the government has it, they can do whatever they want with it. It's theirs now. You foreclosed on it, they gave you the loan, it's the government's. The government has unlimited money. Why? Because of our taxes. And they can go and they can put anybody in there. I mean, that's scary. That's the scariest part about the next contraction, I should say, in the real estate market, is that the government owns the house notes. They own the toxic assets, and they've got an unlimited amount of money supply thanks to our taxes. So anyway, folks, my apologies for getting long-winded about that particular scenario. I just think it needs to be said. We have a lot of people now talking garbage about deregulation, this and that. No, it was regulation, and it's continuously, always regulation that causes these crises. I mean, I just outlined to you in technical detail what exactly caused the crisis of 2008, 2009. And it's going to happen again. I promise you it'll happen again. That's why this Trump administration, which I have always said is a manifestation of the capitalist revolution, just take a look at who he is putting in his cabinet. This is the richest cabinet in world history. They understand that if they can create not only job growth, but GDP growth, sustainable at least 4%, then they can offset whatever Wall Street is trying to plan for the Trump administration, and they can also offset what the Federal Reserve is trying to do to this administration. Both entities don't have very favorable, they're not very favorable to the administration. Let's just put it lightly, all right?